team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the vice commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Standing behind me very strongly, I want to pay my respects to Lindsey, who was our friend. He was a friend of all of us. He was a great guy. He was a great politician, actually. And it's hard to believe he's gone. Spoke to me just before he passed away, just to say hello. He got back. He felt fine. He was a little tired. And then this whole thing happened. And it's, boy, it's tough. So the flags are at half-mast until Saturday evening, which is an extended period of time, you know, generally speaking, but I think he deserves it. And he's a fantastic person. He was a fantastic man. He was actually a great politician. He got along with almost everybody. And when he didn't get along, they knew it. He was tough, but he was a good man. He was very much in favor of the Save America Act. He called me about that. We were talking about that and some other things, but he just felt tired, but he felt fine. And then this horrible thing happened just a short time afterwards. So it was terrible. I just want to pay our respects.
I made a show. It's Training Tuesday, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, life is unpredictable, folks. In a flash, South Carolina and America has lost its senior United States senator from that state. Lindsey Graham passed away suddenly in the entire state, and really the whole country is reeling from the news. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Senator Graham's family and his staff and every South Carolinian who counted on him for more than 2 decades. Mr. Graham was a veteran, a retired colonel who brought that same sense of duty to the Senate. He fought hard on national security and foreign policy, and whether you agreed with him on every issue or not, you knew where he was standing. And as the president just said, this is a big loss. We're going to spend today unpacking exactly what this means. Our guest will walk us through what some are already calling the new 40-day senator and how the seat will be filled eventually with an election. And we'll hear directly from South Carolina's Congresswoman Nancy Mace in a clip later in the show on Mr. Graham's passing and his legacy. And finally, we'll discuss something that Will Cain highlighted yesterday, and that is that Senator Graham was one of the few politicians who didn't get rich off his office. He left public service the same way he came in. To help us break all this down from a strong conservative perspective, I'm joined live right now by South Carolina native and Republican political expert, Chad Caton, the National Field Director for the Conservative Caucus. Chad, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Colonel. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I wanted to get your take. You know, look, I was not necessarily a fan of Senator Graham all the time.
That makes two of us.
We disagree. As a matter of fact, I came across a clip from 2019 with me yelling at him from years ago when we first started this show about the FISA court law and those kind of things. He was on the Judiciary Committee. But you can't say he didn't love this country. It didn't work very hard for it, can you?
Well, I have to put a caveat out there, too, because Lindsey and I have been fierce political enemies, if you will. And we've gone after each other, you know, him more as a sitting senior senator. He would do it with his team or, you know, within the state. And you know how politics is, especially in South Carolina. It's a blood sport. And mm-hmm. I've actually been attacked online because I have talked so much about Lindsey and how I felt that he needed to be removed from office in comparison to what's going on with the MAGA movement and where we're heading with this party. That being said, you know, I'm being attacked because I said I wish all the best, and that's what differentiates us from the left, right? You know, I'm told every day that somebody's going to kill me in Antifa or something else, but we don't do that. And a man lost his life. He had an aortic dissection, which is terrible. And we need to show that empathy. And I am showing that empathy and respect for the senator, but I also have to be honest about my I vehemently disagreed with him on quite a few things in his stature and stance as a very powerful senator. So that being said, South Carolina is in chaos right now. That's for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about that issue of seeing the difference between its politics versus right now. I mean, the man lost his life out of the blue. It's a big loss for the country and for your state, simply because of that, for one reason, because he was a very powerful senator. I mean, he didn't have a leadership position, but he really wielded a lot more power than a lot of the people in formal leadership positions in the Senate. And he brought a lot of stuff home to South Carolina that you wouldn't otherwise have with a junior senator or somebody less powerful, didn't he?
He did, and there's some good caveats here in Horry County, the Myrtle Beach area. He took the old Air Force Base, which you're familiar with, and that runway, and he actually went and got federal money so that we can extend that runway and make it a more viable international airport, which it's grown exponentially. And there's always good things that elected people can do. And here's the way I always explain Lindsey. Lindsey may not have been in leadership, but in the great land of Oz, he was definitely behind the curtain pulling the handles.
Oh, absolutely. And you don't have a problem with being respectful during this time of his record, even though, like me, you and I both disagreed with him really vehemently on a lot of things. Sure. Me specifically on Ukraine, the FISA Act, and that kind of stuff. But I don't have a problem with being respectful to him or respectful to his service. I mean, he was an Air Force JAG officer, colonel.
National Guard.
Had a little bit, a few more months total service than I did, about 33 years, I think.
Well, yours was active. His was National Guard.
Yeah, but he did volunteer to go to Afghanistan.
He sure did.
While he was wearing the uniform, not as a senator, but in uniform, to do part of the mission over there. I mean, you gotta give him that. I give him that. I mean, I
give him that. But as most military, I think it's important for somebody that did as long as you did, moving your family all over the planet and everything. I think that we need to call balls and strikes. Yes, he was a 33-year Air Force officer in JAG. And I appreciate that service, but I think it's also important, especially to respect to someone like yourself that did this as a career, comparative to 1 week in a month and 2 weeks out of the year. I have nothing wrong with what his service entailed, but as a serviceman, I think it's important that delineation is made.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just like I think it's important people know that he volunteered to go to Afghanistan. I mean, that was not a no risk endeavor. Let's put it that way.
It was a low risk for a JAG officer, but yes, it's a no. I appreciate what he's done. I've tried to call balls and strikes again, and I'm not being disparaging to the senator. I'm putting facts out, and those facts are where I'd like to live, and in respect to what he's done for our country. Again, vehemently, I had major battles with this guy, and it got very personal to the point where I was had investigations on me. So all of that being said, and I'm putting it to the side, but I'm not going to not recognize the powerful political operative that he was. And I think that we have to be honest within that. For some people, his ability was a benefit. To others, it was a hindrance, like myself. But nonetheless, we lost our senator. We lost a very powerful senator, and we have a feckless senator in Tim Scott. And I'm praying that we're going to be able to put a good one in. And the biggest thing people don't realize is Lindsey Graham ran South Carolina. It was not the governor. It was not the lieutenant governor. It wasn't the speaker. Lindsey Graham decided what happened in this state 1,000%. He was the kingmaker. And with his sad passing, we have to recognize the opportunity for, and you're seeing it now with people coming out for this race. We don't have a lot of time, and we're going to have to recognize the opportunity we have. And I haven't slept much, and you know that. We're trying to get the right candidates and the right people in the right position so that we can move forward with Donald Trump's agenda and to codify a lot of what Donald Trump has tried to do.
Yeah. before we jump into the who's and the wins and all that stuff, from a legacy perspective, both inside South Carolina and nationally, what do you think? What do you think Graham's legacy is going to look like historically now that he's gone from the scene?
I think Lindsey Graham is going to have highways named after him. I think you have to remember, there's only been two men in that seat since 1954, and that's Strom Thurmond and Lindsey Graham. So I believe there will probably be a statue somewhere in South Carolina on his behalf. I believe that he will be remembered as the statesman he was. And people have to understand, statesmen are just that. They're very good at politics. And that's why you saw, sad people running against him for years because of his power. That's being a good politician. I mean, call a spade a spade. And I think that he did do good things. He brought Boeing to South Carolina, brought a bunch of jobs. He brought Mercedes. He was a big part of that. There were some other things that he tried to bring to the state that ended up costing us a bunch of money. But, overall, I think his legacy and something that I can really get behind is he legitimately worked for veterans. He had an entire office in his Senate offices that their job was to look into issues that veterans were having with the VA. And I do know a lot of people that Lindsey Graham helped and his office helped. And that was something that was near and dear to Lindsey. And I give him all the respect in the world, even myself, having wrote my senator based off of some VA issues that I was having, and his office was there for it. So all of those things considered, I think his VA or his backing of veterans in the military, even in appropriations, right? He made sure that we had the money and budget to build the strongest military we have under Donald Trump. All of that being said, within budget and then his judiciary, he's made sure we put some good well, not all of them, but we have some pretty decent senior Supreme Court justices in federal government.
He supported the effort wholeheartedly, on the judges, getting them nominated. I mean, Kavanaugh, I don't think Kavanaugh would have gotten confirmed had it not been for Senator Graham. So,
and that will go down in law. They'll see that. They'll be playing that in law offices about watching Lindsey Graham, which in most lawyers who are usually sharks have no emotion whatsoever. You saw the emotion of Lindsey Graham, whether it was fake or not, to get his point across in that committee hearing. And he did a solid for Judge Kavanaugh, who has been a pretty good judge for us. And it showed his power. Like you said, he's not in leadership, but it showed his power because he spanked every one of the Democrats that day to the point where they had to take a knee, and Kavanaugh became a Supreme Court justice.
Absolutely. We got to take a commercial break. We'll be right back with Chad Caton. We're talking about the passing of Senator Lindsey Graham and everything that comes along with that. We'll be right back.
Take a look at the water you just poured. It looks clean. It tastes fine. But what's really in it? Lead, fluoride, arsenic, chlorine, pesticides, PFAS forever chemicals, pharmaceutical residues, and bacteria. Every single day, these toxins flow straight from your tap into your glass, into your family. It's time for Sentry H2O from Worldview Water. Sentry H2O is the ultimate water treatment technology, designed to remove harmful toxins, balance your water's pH, and enrich it with essential minerals like calcium and magnesium, the way nature intended. From commercial-scale systems to whole-house filtration to crisp, delicious drinking water right at your kitchen sink and shower, Sentry H2O delivers cleaner, healthier water everywhere you need it. No plumber, no tools, no plumbing knowledge required. Perfect for homes, apartments, rentals, RVs, refrigerators, and more. Because everyone deserves access to clean, healthy water. Visit worldviewwater.net. That's worldviewwater.net.
I want to thank the governor for selecting me to serve the remainder of Lindsey's term. It is such an honor. Lindsey has always been there for me, and now I will be there for him. My brother was the most amazing person, outstanding leader, and just a genuinely good man. He was kind and considerate and loved by his family dearly. As I think everyone would agree, Lindsey worked harder than anyone. He worked nonstop to make our state, country, and world better. He loved his family and loved serving this state and our country. He dedicated his life to our country. It is such a privilege to get to finish some of his important work, and I promise to work hard over the next several months to support the President and carry forward the efforts of my brother on behalf of the citizens of South Carolina and the United States. I know Lindsey thought the world of his staff and colleagues, and with their support, I feel confident. I think this is what Lindsey would have wanted, and I plan to honor him in this way. Now to Lindsey, I miss you more than I can even put into words, but I'm going to do this. I got it. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube. And my guest today is Chad Caton, who is a South Carolina Republican who has been involved in Republican politics in the state for decades now. I don't want to age him too much, but it has been decades. And I consider him an expert in this area. Chad, this has left a vacuum of not only the position itself, but a vacuum in the state. As you mentioned, he ran the state. So you've got a leadership vacuum plus the Senate seat vacuum. Your thoughts on that was his sister, Darlene Graham Nordone, who's been named by the governor, has been appointed by the governor to take his seat. Your thoughts on that development first, I guess.
Well, the people that are the anti-establishment folks, the real MAGA folks here in South Carolina, could not thank the president for posting about that, making it very complicated for the governor to go another way. For instance, to give the leg up to his lieutenant governor, who just lost the governor's race to our AG. So there was a lot of, I was super worried about. I mean, literally at 2:00 in the morning, my phone was blowing up. I was on the phone and I was talking to possible candidates that were calling me. I was calling them. We're trying to figure out how this was going to work out. I talked to Governor McMaster's office. I mean, everybody was up at 3:00 in the morning throughout the rest of the day in South Carolina that are players or advocates in politics here in South Carolina. So I think that this, whether it was, it's said that, well, let's put it this way. The way that the president posted about putting Lindsey's sister up made it sound like this was his idea. And I'm going with that because essentially he took that pick out of the hand of the establishment and gave us a real shot at the primary.
Yeah, I've seen some criticism of that, though.
Oh my God.
From all over the spectrum, by the way, left and right, about, well, Senate seats shouldn't be to pay tribute to anybody, et cetera. I guess the president made a comment about, well, we're going to honor Lindsey by doing this. But really, it's a smart political move, isn't it? I mean, it's really
and
smart.
thank you for giving me an opportunity because I've been losing my mind all over Twitter. There's so many huge accounts that I consider political accounts that have a tendency to understand what's going on. But this is extreme nuance, right? This is a special situation. Everybody keeps putting up some other senator's wife is now a huge rhino and a pain, and she won't leave the office and all that. But there's so much difference, and one of those are time concept of our primary or our general election. And we've already, it's already been established that she has no interest in running in this primary. So essentially and I'm going to leave it with Trump until I hear differently, because I have a really hard time believing with this opportunity and the way South Carolina was ran that a establishment governor would be like, let's leave it open to the primaries and see what happens. That's not it at all. This was absolutely a Donald Trump play because there was 2 or 3 people he could have put in that Senate seat, himself being one of them, and they would have won handedly because of the incumbent tag put on them. And people don't realize that being the incumbent and watching him on Fox News, being the senator that took over, that was appointed for Lindsey, gives all of this new pomp and circumstance to this particular person for an appointment. And what I loved about this is essentially Trump said, why don't we give Lindsey's sister a good 100 some odd days to clean out an office that Lindsey lived in for essentially 30 years. So, or more. And And that's the way I look at it. I appreciate the pomp and circumstance. We're looking at anywhere from 40 to 60 session days. The way that Thune's been going, it might be 30 because he keeps giving extra time. And let's be honest, what's really happening in our U.S. Senate? Thune isn't putting anything on the floor. They're not getting any votes. So, I mean, I don't understand the angst of the concept of nepotism when the nepotism actually is not there. The nepotism of a short, and this is a nice thing to give to a sister that Lindsey had to adopt based off of the death of his mother and father within 15 months of each other, and she's going to have that nomenclature of being a senator along with her brother. And people are like, well, that's not what we're supposed to have. I appreciate that, and we should put good people up. But if it would have went the other way, I assure you, you have not got the MAGA Republican that we have the opportunity to put there now.
Yeah. Why do you know that we have that opportunity to fill that gap with a MAGA public?
Well, I know that I'm a big numbers guy. You know that. Not very good at math, but I can see which one's bigger, right? And at the end of the day, I know that 60 to 70% with an incumbent I after their name in South Carolina in a midterm is pretty much a 60, 70% chance of winning. And we even without a name recognition, because they're going to be listed first as incumbent. And the sad part about that is that it is a huge leg up. You're going to get all the, again, pomp and circumstance of taking this seat from because Lindsey Graham had died, and the news is covering it. They're going to cover who it is. They're going to get plenty of speeches and interviews. That's not fair to a 30-day, basically, primary that we're looking at for the vote to happen August 11th. So by saying she's gonna keep the seat warm and clean out Lindsey's office, excuse me, then there's an opportunity there for the primary to be wide open. Now, there can come the endorsements. We all know that Trump's endorsement is a powerful one, especially in South Carolina. But now it gives Trump the opportunity to actually get somebody that, and I pray to God, and trust me, we're working everywhere we can, because there's some people he endorses. And if I had any issue with Trump, it's his endorsements that I think Trump learned at the RNC when Drew McKissick, the South Carolina GOP, showed his rear end in that. And upset the Trump administration. I think that what Trump did by doing this is he took the power out of the cabal. He took it out of the Dixie Democrat Republicans that are running this state, and he said, we're going to make it wide open. And I pray, and I'm working diligently to make sure that the president understands who's actually MAGA and who's not.
Yeah, what is the potential slate of potential candidates look like right now? How's it shaping up?
Well, you use the right. I'm sorry, Colonel. But you use the right word when you opened your show. There's a vacuum, and when everything is being sucked out that window right now, and there's a whole bunch of people from people that have zero chance, but think that this is an opportunity, and they don't have to worry about the machine that will come after you and Lindsey Graham. Plus, you also have to understand Lindsey Graham controlled the money in South Carolina when it came to politics. So a lot of people would run against Lindsey with $5 million against his $175 million. You know, he controlled that with Boeing and Mercedes and these other organizations that came in there in these PACs. So with that vacuum, I mean, literally, you could not have used a better word. Like, this is like an airplane losing its window. Everybody's running to that window, trying to plug it up and be the new king. And we're looking at Pam Yvette, I think, is our lieutenant governor who just got spanked in the runoff by our attorney general. Trump kind of did her dirty. He originally had endorsed her for the governor's race. And then when it came to the runoff between her and the AG, he also endorsed Alan Wilson, the AG, which, you know, he said, I like them both, so I'm just going to endorse them both. And that really did dirty. This would be a great way for Trump to make that right. I hope that's not the case, because she lost because she's an abject failure. You also have Mark Lynch, who was second place to Lindsey in the runoff. But I mean, he got spanked by Lindsey then, so I have a hard time believing that everybody's going to be like, this is a good idea now. I really don't think he has much of an opportunity. I think Nancy Mace is real. I think that it's there, and there's a lot of people that have issue with her and in South Carolina because she's pretty hard, but the good table flipper has never hurt. And then you've got the outside person that nobody's really talking about, but is being talked about, is Andre Bauer, the man that was the lieutenant governor for South Carolina a huge friend of Trump's, and was actually running against Lindsey until he dropped out of the race. And then Trump subsequently named him as the ambassador to Belize. He's been waiting for confirmation. Again, Thune doesn't do anything. So, there's people sitting in the wings here where, if you ask somebody to drop from a race because you think that they actually might beat Lindsey and you need Lindsey for this particular time in your presidency, I would see to me, he checks all the boxes. He's young. He has baggage, but his baggage was based on him being single and a lieutenant governor. Think about that in their dating world. That would probably be pretty interesting. And people want to turn that into something ugly based on the evangelicals here in South Carolina when they vote at 14%. So frankly, I don't care what they think. So, when it comes down to it, the only one that really checks all the boxes and where we want to go moving forward and being about as MAGA as you can be and ready to go on the Senate floor and having the political wherewithal to do the job is Andre Bauer. Nobody's talking about him though, but that's again in those nuances. So we're going to see how this popularity contest works out. But I will say this, it could be Trey Gowdy. Trey Gowdy's getting a whole bunch of push from Tim Scott. I don't see that happening. I think the president recognizes that because Trey has not been very friendly. You've got Mark Sanford. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Benghazi.
Yeah, Benghazi. You've got Mark Sanford that's raising his ugly head again. And Nikki Haley, which is just hilarious to me, but because she couldn't be more of a disliked in South Carolina. But I think there could be up to 30 people on this ballot, frankly, in August. But I think ultimately, and I think that's the play that Trump did by Trump saying, hey, why don't you make his sister the senator? Because now it's given him time to work through who he wants to make the next senator of South Carolina. And when Donald Trump puts that endorsement on whoever, that will be the next senator of South Carolina. I hope it's not the Pam Yvette thing. I really, really don't. I really, really hope that's not the case. But I would lean towards Pam Yvette. Okay.
Well, we're going to take another break. When we come back, we'll hear from Nancy Mace, the Congresswoman from South Carolina, whose name you just heard a few moments ago. We'll be right back.
3 years ago, the United States was stunned by an announcement from war-torn Korea. U.S. Army Private David Hawkins and 20 other prisoners of the communists had become turncoats. They had renounced their own country and disappeared behind Red China's bamboo curtain.
What had you heard? Well, only what our Chinese captors had told us, how great they were working toward socialism, the great stride that they were taking, bettering the life of the Chinese people who for so many thousands of years had lived a life of oppression under various governments.
Whether you liked him or not, when he walked into that room, he was ready to fight. The gloves were off, and he loved America, and he loved South Carolina. Now, we didn't always agree, but he had my back when I needed it, and I've had his. I watched him in that spirit of the fight when Justice Kavanaugh was getting confirmed by the Senate. He walked into that room and defended Kavanaugh when he was under an ambush. And that's a fire and fighting spirit that is well known in Lindsey Graham. That'll be his lore, his legacy for an eternity. But I don't think he's replaceable.
I don't think he's replaceable. That's Nancy Mace. And my guest today is Chad Caton from South Carolina. He's also the national field director for the Conservative Caucus, very powerful nationwide organization. Chad, you mentioned that she's hard. What does that mean exactly?
I know Nancy personally, and I'm sorry. Nancy says what Nancy thinks. She's she's Trump in heels. It's that simple. She doesn't go the popular route. She fights for what she legitimately believes in. Sometimes I wonder if those things correlate between her constituency and what she's actually doing, because some of it seems very personal, especially when it comes to men and women's locker rooms, things like that. But I think that she speaks from that, having been raped herself. She is speaking for the youth of this country, and that's where I really learn to respect her, because I'm also a table flipper. So I appreciate her way of doing it with uncanny and fearless action. And I don't know her to necessarily be against anything specifically. It's just people don't like her tone, and I think that goes along with the fact she's a woman. She's an attractive woman, and I'm not doing the sexist thing, but it just seems like even yesterday when she came out and said I keep trying to get out of this, but they pull me back, and everybody thought that was in bad taste. When in fact the only person that was being talked about or to run for Lindsey was in fact Nancy Mace, and people were saying you won't even let his Lindsey's body it's still warm, blah blah blah. But what people don't understand is you have to file this week, and you have 30 days to run. So we have to talk about this. So I thought that I think she gets a lot of angst from especially females. They seem to, which is ironic, but the females seem to be very headhuntery when it comes to her, and maybe it's a strong female thing, I don't know. But Nancy makes me laugh, and at the end of the day, I like her way of politics, and I like the way that she will stand in that breach when nobody else will, with fearless regard. So Nancy, saying Lindsey can never be replaced. Well, we're going to do it August 11th. So I appreciate that. And I'm somebody that understands what Lindsey's power was about. And for me, it's time for that change. And I wish it would have happened because we had somebody good running instead of the loss of his life. I am no way happy about that. But this is a situation, an opportunity right now for South Carolina to relinquish itself from the Dixie Democrat Republicans, the most liberal conservative supermajority in the nation.
So you don't see Mace as a Dixiecrat Republican?
Not even close.
She's more MAGA than anything else?
I don't know if she's more Macy MAGA. I mean, she kind of has her own brand, she kind of goes MAGA. She kind of, goes, she's not a sycophant. Let's say that. She will not just follow because somebody told her to. She stepped out against Trump, and they had their little beef, but I need everybody to recognize there's only two people that have legitimately gone against Trump in regards to re-elections or even in the press. And there's only two people that have come out okay on the other side, and that's Lindsey Graham and Nancy Mace.
Yeah, good point. That's a very good point. I'm not sure what kind of relationship she has with the president. What about your lieutenant governor? You mentioned her a couple of times in the last segment. What's the issue there?
Man. You're really putting me on the spot here. I remember I live in the state, but nonetheless, I don't care. Yes, our lieutenant governor is, the lieutenant governor is somebody that goes and opens businesses, cuts, the red thing saying, welcome to South Carolina, and the business is going to be great here. And she goes around, shakes hands, goes to parties, does speeches. She didn't really do anything. Now, that being said, personally, I can say that in the beginning of her being the lieutenant governor, she did work very closely with me to pass a piece of legislation that we were trying to pass for almost 20 years as firefighters. And that piece of legislation was to for the state to actually recognize that we could get cancer from the smoke and the inhalation that we actually had. And it was the presumptive cancer bill that we got passed, and she was a big part of that. So I have to give her credit where that's due personally. And I was having that discussion with her and working to get that passed. But subsequently after that, I just feel like it's a I need the next position type thing. She's also from Ohio. She has a large accounting company that she dabbled in and played in the DEI game for quite a bit. So it kind of feels like she talks out of both sides of her mouth when it comes to true policy. She's likable, but I don't take her as strong in any way, shape, or form to represent one of the strongest states in the United States, be it South Carolina in our Senate House. So that being said, I don't think she's cut for this job. And I think that South Carolina people recognize that also. That's why they didn't vote for her for governor.
Yeah, being a CEO and then dabbling, to quote you, in the DEI thing as a corporate CEO, that's a big red flag for a lot of people.
It is. And South Carolina ain't big on the carpetbagger thing, because when it comes to the lieutenant governor, we don't really vote for that person. They're picked by their running mate. And she hit a lot of the things that she's very soft. She doesn't come across as somebody that is overtly rude or a table flipper or anything like that. She kind of goes along to get along, and she is a nice lady. But we just lost a powerhouse in the Senate that whether we liked him or not, he was able to get things done, and Trump knew that. I think we need to replace somebody with a MAGA South Carolinian that's going to go up there and flip the table in the Senate, because we know the Senate's a problem for us as Republicans right now. So she's not it, though.
Yeah, and we know that the president likes Bauer. He wouldn't have appointed him to be an ambassador to anywhere, I don't think, if he didn't know him and have a good sense of hearing. What's the difference between a Mace candidacy and a Bauer candidacy from your perspective?
Great question. Mace is kind of ass on fire kind of thing, and then you have Andre Bauer, who is extremely articulate, very well spoken, understands his point, and doesn't. We have politicians that argue their points, but none of it makes any sense. He's very good at that. He brings people along. He's the people's lieutenant governor. He was very involved in things that were important to him in South Carolina and important to the constituency. He actually was the guy that was on CNN prior to Jennings going on CNN and being the Republican voice in those roundtables. That was Andre Bauer for years after he became a lieutenant governor. So he obviously is willing to and able and has the ability to stand up to the radical left that's moving here exponentially from New York because they can't afford to live.
Oh, they're moving to South Carolina instead of Florida. I thought they were all going to
Florida. You can't get insurance, and South Carolina is the fastest. Horry County, where I live, is the fastest growing real estate market in the United States for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's because the boomers are retiring and they're taking their retirement and moving where they don't have to pay near as much for their property taxes or any at all, because they get to, we have a thing here where you are. You don't have to pay property taxes after 65. So Homestead Act. So. Yeah. They come here, they don't have to pay the property taxes, the exuberant ones that they pay in New York or Boston or wherever, and they're coming down here and they're bringing their politics with them, unfortunately.
Yeah, we don't need them to bring their voting for the Mondani communist Islamist types with them, do we?
No. And when we had the No Kings rallies here, my wife and I loved to go up there and troll them with a big speaker. And the last time the first time they ever did it, there was maybe 200 people there, and they were your typical. The last time we did it, which was actually our wedding anniversary, and I said, for our wedding anniversary, we're going to go troll the No Kings rally. She thought it was great. Elizabeth did. And we went out there in my truck and a big old speaker, and there was probably 2,000 people there then. So, and that's that. They're saying 80 people moved to Horry County, South Carolina from up north daily. So as you can tell, we are going to be the Florida purple when they had their generation all moved to Florida after they retired. And South Carolina and North Carolina are dealing with that right now.
Well, it's a struggle for the southern states, not necessarily Florida, except for the northern part of it, because, they're from the old South, and you got a lot of former Democrats changed to R. And I know people don't realize, they think that's old history, but that's really not old history. I mean, Mississippi's Republicans have only controlled the legislature for a little bit over a decade.
That's because the Dixie Democrat followed themselves. And my senator, Luke Rankin, who at one point had the lowest rated conservative voting rated per CPAC at 22% conservative voting as a Republican. And he's the third most powerful man in the Senate. He actually is the one that chooses all of our judges with this crazy judge merit selection committee instead of us actually, because us and Virginia are the only two states that appoints our judges, which is ridiculous. And this guy's an absolute Democrat. He actually wrote a letter to his constituents saying, because of redistricting, I have to now run as a Republican. And he hasn't changed his stripes at all. He is every bit of a Democrat. And then the one in North Myrtle Beach was also a Democrat, and he now carries an R. That's why we have the most liberal conservative supermajority on the planet in South Carolina. But the people of South Carolina are red, red, red. They just don't pay attention to the nuances that I argue all the time. Play the game, learn the game, play it better, then you can kick their butt. We just go with the next shiny object and vote for them because they have an R after the name. It's sad.
Yeah, and Republicans, we love our incumbents, man. It's tough to get a Republican
It is so ridiculous.
Out. You don't see very often like what just happened up in the Northeast, where Mondani's communist slate all defeated these very powerful, and when I say powerful, I mean very well-funded incumbents like Dan Goldman. I mean, I was very surprised that they were able to pull that off. It's just a very different story when you're talking about Republicans. And the Democrats that have switched over, they love it. because they get to keep their power, and it happens all the time in the South. We got to take our last break, Chad. When we come back, I think we'll see another clip, obviously, but it's about Graham's wealth. This one pleasantly surprised me. I want to get your take on it. We'll be right back with Chad Caton on Worldview Tube.
The storm hits. The power's out. The stores are empty. Grocery shelves cleared in hours. And now you're staring into an empty pantry, wondering how you're going to feed your family. It doesn't have to be that way. Worldview Store offers premium emergency freeze-dried food, real meals packed with nutrition, ready when you need them most. Hearty breakfasts, savory dinners, hot, satisfying food for your whole family. With a shelf life of up to 25 years, you store it once and forget about it until the day you need it. Just add water. In minutes, you've got a hot, delicious meal. No refrigeration, no fuss, no panic. Hurricanes, blackouts, job loss, supply shortages, whatever comes, you'll be ready. Don't wait for the next emergency to wish you'd prepared. Visit worldviewstore.com. That's worldviewstore.com or call 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652.
It's reported today that Lindsey Graham died with a net worth of $1.5 million. The man served in the United States Senate for 30 years. Now, one could say, why are you going to throw flowers at the feet of the way it should be done? Maybe because it's a rarity to see it the way it should be done. Like the vast majority of people in Congress and in the Senate that go serve for 3 decades come out mysteriously and typically rich. And here's Lindsey Graham, and I think his primary net worth was in a Washington townhouse that he owned and a home back in South Carolina. Like, he obviously wasn't insider trading. He obviously wasn't on the take for Zelensky. My man was just doing it for love of the game. 100% love of the game. That's Lindsey Graham.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and we're talking about the unfortunate sudden death of Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina with South Carolina Republican expert Chad Caton, who's also the national field director of the Conservative Caucus. And that one surprised me, Chad, because, you know, Senator Graham is heavily involved in the defense sector. You mentioned that he brought Boeing and Mercedes to the state of South Carolina, moving thousands and thousands of jobs and economic impact dollars into the state, which is wonderful. But for him to have only as his net worth the 2 homes really that he owns is really shocking in today's environment in a positive way.
Yes. But it's also what we know Lindsey for. Everybody's out there saying what an operative he was, what an amazing political mind he was. He had enough skeletons in his closet that the financial thing would probably be a big problem when he was a part of appropriations and in part of defense spending. It's widely known that he took the military industrial complex from McCain when he died. And Lindsey was his point person. And Lindsey, I'm not going to make any accusations but what I will say is that how can we say that somebody was such a fox in the concept of politics and make the assumption that he was with the military industrial complex, Boeing, Mercedes, all of these things, and he always had $200-300 million in his campaign coffers, in his Wells Fargo account and what he's known, which I actually looked it up, and I think Will Cain's wrong there, because his condo or townhouse he had in D.C. was known as a rental. He just had been renting it for a very, very, very long time. However that works. But see how easily that can be misconstrued. So he had his sister, he had his nieces and nephews that all have net worths at very young ages. So you tell me. I don't know, but I'm not jumping on that. Well, damn, Lindsey's great, and he didn't partake in the game that is money floating around DC. I'm not fully. I look too far into things, and like you said, I have been living in South Carolina. There's not many people that know Lindsey better than me, just based off of our own issues and fights. And I'll just say that I don't know that that's necessarily accurate.
I would just say that in the defense piece of it, anyway, it's very difficult to hide it because there's so much money there.
Well, it's difficult to find it. What you mean, I think, because it's not hard to hide it. You just got to put it over here, way far away from you, and say, this guy, Bob, whatever. And that's not just Lindsey, that's South Carolina. I mean, you want a road built in South Carolina, it's all about greasing the wheels. Unless you have people like Chad Caton that'll stand up to you to keep a stupid road coming through a swamp here to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So all those things, and that's why it's important that we stand up and get off to X and these things and get out and get things done. Absolutely.
So were you surprised? The president's talked about this a couple of times since Lindsey died. Is that in the last conversation they had together that he said, I think we've got the Save America Act passed, something to that effect. Were you surprised by that?
No. And let me tell you why, because Lindsey had to give a lot of collateral to get rid of Andre Bauer out of the Senate race, didn't run against Mark Lynch, which got 28% of the vote. It wasn't really fair. Trump knew that Andre could bring a real fight to Lindsey. And we have a real Democrat challenger, a doctor lady that I'm not gonna say her name because I don't like her, but she's viable. She's a viable candidate for the seat. So all of that being said, ultimately, I think that where we're going in the direction of this particular primary is going to be important. It's just hard how it's going to be worked out.
Yeah, I mean, that one surprised me a little bit. I mean, you're a Senate kind of watcher too. You've mentioned Thune a couple of times. I just don't see the path unless Thune changes his tune, so to speak.
Well, they're going to do it under
rhyme, but it did.
Yeah, Lindsey's whole goal was he was going to do it through this military spending act or this bill, and basically what he was going to do was. He was going to say that I'm connecting it to this and force Thune to deal with the Save America Act. That's already set up. If it's true from what Lindsey said, then I think it won't be hard for, say, his sister to, and again, we play with the emotions of a midterm, and everybody's kind of looking at the sister of Lindsey Graham trying to pass this, and Trump's doing a great job saying, well, if you guys want to, respect your friend Lindsey, then you should pass the SAVE Act because he was doing this, through appropriations. So I think that we're 50-50 right now. It's all going to be determinant on how, if we don't get the SAVE Act, then we know that there are Republicans out there that are working specifically with the Democrats, and they're worried about keeping the establishment in play. There shouldn't be a reason now, especially on the emotional side of somebody like Lindsey Graham and his sister and this particular bill, the spending bill, that they want to connect it to.
Yeah, and I think some people are worried about her, but tell folks how the staffs are important. And his staff didn't die.
No. Well, here's the thing. I tell everybody she's got roughly 40, 60 session days. Again, and Thune could make that 10, the way they keep taking vacations. And at the same time, let's be honest, the Senate is feckless. They're not doing anything. So the idea that this is some kind of nepotism thing and she's going to just be another Lindsey 2.0 is really not fair in any way, shape, or form if you look at those nuances. So I don't really see where that's going to go. I don't see why people are mad about it. And again, I thought it was based on the primary and the opportunity for Trump to have a MAGA Republican. This was a brilliant move. And now we're going to see the emotional side of it to see if the Save America Act is actually passed through this appropriations bill.
Yeah, because it's smart. I think Senator Graham attached it to this small spending reconciliation bill Which only requires a 50% majority, right?
Yeah, it takes away the 2/3 vote, and we wouldn't need the filibuster because it's a reconciliation bill, right? So come into 50%. We have that with J.D. Vance, even at a close number. So there's going to, and people are going to have to go to committee and stand up against this. They're going to have to vote against this. They're going to have to put their name on it. Now, the ones like Cornyn and Tillis that have already been dealt with, they're automatic no's. So they're going to have to figure out how this reconciliation bill comes through and what they get out of it in the long run to see if they can flip those votes and we get the 50% threshold, which I think is possible if it goes the way that Lindsey had it planned and told the president we're good to go on Save America Act.
Yeah, I think so. Have Cornyn and Tillis said anything nice about Senator Graham since he passed? Maybe
That's
the
a
president
really
can pull
interesting
the emotional string on those guys.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. You haven't heard anything from Schumer, which I did a great a post about because I thought it was very telling. Schumer and Lindsey were decent friends. Like they're known up there when they had the big three with McCain and Lieberman and Lindsey. They brought along Schumer. And I find it very interesting on the left how there hasn't been anybody when Lindsey was known and kind of made people like me upset, would work so diligently and give the left what they did. Part of his Kavanaugh argument was Sotomayor and these other judges I voted for. And here you are doing this to Judge Kavanaugh. So he was very central to the left's issues, and he would listen and have that debate, which some of it's okay, but he did a little more than I wanted. But I think it's extremely telling to show that the Democratic Socialists of America are in control of the Democratic Party. And if any of the old war horses like a Schumer goes out and says he was my friend, they're going to be dealt with exponentially. The only one I saw has gone out and said anything about Lindsey is Spartacus himself. Who really has no position anywhere and probably isn't going anywhere. So he didn't have a whole lot to lose. And he kind of was, I'm sure they're letting him do that as the face of the Democrats, saying that Lindsey was a statesman, blah, 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 blah. And he did it smiling while he was on a run, which I thought was in bad taste. But nonetheless, you got it. You haven't heard from Schumer. You haven't even heard from Mitch McConnell, right? He hasn't. I mean, they're buddies.
Who?
Yeah, that guy. There's a picture out there now that apparently they sat him up and put a shirt on him. But this is extremely telling, both on the right and the left, showing that they're worried about the Democratic Socialists of America making that move or saying anything positive.
Yeah, let's just call them what they are. They're the American communists. And Mondami's power stroke that you just saw in New York has to have Schumer shaking in his boots.
Oh, it
no
does.
Doubt about it.
They know that, and I mean, it was talked about that Schumer is playing nice because he's scared of AOC, which is hilarious to me. But nonetheless, this is how depraved the left has been prostituted into this communist socialist political agenda, and we've seen that with Tim Walz pardoning a illegal immigrant pedophile. Yep. To the point where he was out there and then doubled down saying nothing good is going to happen from sending him out of this country, this illegal that groomed a 10-year-old and raped her multiple times. And he said the reason we pardoned him is because she wrote me a letter. A 10-year-old wrote you a letter, and you're going to take that as a concept of pardoning. That's probably not very good when the idea of grooming is well known, and there is that aspect to where, they may be scared of the CCP. They may be scared of this guy's provenance. So all of that being said, it just shows how depraved, and you've seen it where people are celebrating Lindsey Graham's death on the left and some on the right, which I find disturbing. But nonetheless, here we are. And that just shows where we are as a country and how divided we are and how vitriolic we are to give up our moral senses and look to the concept of death and celebrate it.
Yeah, I think that's as we go to close here. I got about 40 seconds left. I just want to say, you and I think, are on the same page about showing respect to Senator Graham, even though we opposed him a lot and very, very vocally and aggressively from a policy perspective. But we're Americans. We're all Americans. And I think I'm a little concerned that the other side can't see that anymore. And that's probably the most telling story as we come into these midterms and then 2028, isn't it? Give you the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, Colonel, I get threatened every day. Nick Sorter, we do what we do when we go to these Antifa riots. I mean, they look us in the eye. They definitely want us dead. There's not a moral compass in there in any way, shape, or form. And we have got to the concept of that vitriol to where people just would rather kill people than have debates or be intelligent. With today's AI and Google, there's no reason we have the unintelligent voter that we have. And they choose to be lazy. They choose to follow certain people. I tell people all the time, don't follow me. Take my perspective and look it up. Make your own decisions. And that's why I try to ride very strongly on calling balls and strikes based off of my political beliefs. So, and the Conservative Caucus. So all of that being said, we are in dangerous times, and the morality of this country is in the microscope right now, and I hope that we can take a immediate turn right and fix it.
Absolutely. Well, Chad, thank you very much for joining me. It's a tough discussion, but it's one that needs to be had, both out of respect for the senator and the pathway of our country and the state of South Carolina moving forward. We appreciate you, man. Thanks a lot. You can follow him at X. I'm fired up too. Chad Caton. Check it out. Tomorrow's Whistleblower Wednesday. We'll see you then.